It did it. The computer locked up right as I was trying, right as the video ended. I was like, uh oh. How is it going tonight, guys? It is Tuesday. We've made it almost halfway through the week. So, got some special announcements today. So, we do have a few sponsors to run over real quick. So, we are going to talk about Codex Entertainment LLC, Luis Torres. Right now, Nebula Pearl has like 12 hours left on it. So, if you can, give a shout out. I'm trying to copy this link and it's not cooperating. So I'm going to copy this link into the comments. Go check it out. Share it with your friends. Share it all over the place. Like you said, 12 hours left, something around there. I know it was 24 hours earlier this morning. I haven't checked. It's been a crazy afternoon. But definitely give that a look-see. It is a mind meld project with Wendy Steenshiner, Alfred Trujillo, Doobie Doobie Doo, Karen Nicole, Michael Shoemaker, and CB Zane. So it's an awesome project. It's a mind meld. One started writing it, they passed it on to the next, and they continued passing it along until the story was over. So I'm really interested to see how it plays out. And our second sponsor of the night is Naughty Fairies. If you missed out on Naughty Fairies Con 2021, it is still available on BackerKit. You can go to this link. It's going to be open until the middle of next week. So you missed out on any of those Naughty Fairy goodies, you can follow this link right here and go get all those awesome things. And also stay tuned for the end of the month. Naughty Fairy Stripper Assassins issue 5 will be releasing. So with that being said, let's bring out our guest of the night. Did that not? No, it didn't. Miss Cathy Jackson. You trying to hide from us?
I don't know what's wrong with my camera. I'll be honest with you.
That's all right.
Over there? Oh, cool.
Yeah, we're there. You're good. I was like, what's going on there? All of a sudden, I look over and your phone's all crazy.
I'm trying to move that over a little bit. Got a bit of a lag going on my end, so I apologize on that.
No, it's all good. Oh, and thanks for throwing that in there, Mike. Yes, we still have Xenoninit Titan. It will be live for another 8 days after tonight. Thank you, sir.
Scooch in. I'm so out of frame.
And Jack says, hi, Cathy.
Hello. How are you?
Scooch in. Pretend like you love each other.
That's great in frame. There you go. You get the blood.
Hey, Mike and Trish. We got Mike in here. I don't think Trish is in there. Trish might still be at work, Jack. So, well, we're going to try this, and we're not going to butcher it, all right? So we're going to say Min Eurozan. That is your newest book, correct?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. When I actually started writing it, I sort of borrowed from Tolkien a bit by mashing up languages. We watch Lord of the Rings, like, marathon it twice a year at our house. And I thought, wouldn't it be neat to take two languages and sort of mash them up? So I took Spanish and French and kind of played with the words a bit and created a whole other language for the planet that June lives on with her mates. And the planet's name is Orsalse. Matt, my husband Matt can actually pronounce it so much better than I can.
You gotta roll the R.
Because you have to. I can't roll an R. So
Salsa.
yeah, Orsalse. So, but it's a whole other language. Orsalse. Yep.
So I want to back it up. So we'll get back to that book. It's the only book with a title harder than mine. So I'm just kidding. So I want to back it up. I want to start out like, so, you know, at what age did you realize you wanted to be an author?
Wow. I honestly don't. It was in 2013, 2014.
Yeah. 6 years ago.
I'd say early 40s.
7 years ago.
Or late 30s ish. Yeah.
So is this kind of like a spur of the moment thing? You were just like, man, I really like reading books. I want to try my hand at writing one, or?
No, I actually never was a reader. So when my mom died, and everybody who knows me kind of knows the story already. But when my mom died, I had a whole bunch of grief and stuff that I didn't quite know what to do with. So I just started writing for like the first time ever in my life. And so when I wrote, I actually wrote the first thing I wrote was like a Doctor Who fanfic, which is still unpublished, of course, but sort of seamlessly integrating that moment. If you're a Doctor Who fan, where the 10th Doctor is like, I don't want to go, and sort of starts that whole regeneration process. And in that moment, if you were to like snapshot it, a whole other life was lived up until the moment that he starts to regenerate. So, and that was 8 books, I think. So that's what that was. And then, can you hand me that book back there? And then one of the other, I just some other unfinished manuscripts. There's always unfinished manuscripts for authors. But then I wrote another manuscript that I really didn't think I would ever do anything with. And my sister-in-law said, I have a friend who's an editor, and I bet she'd love to look at this story. And I'm like, okay. So I sent it off to Jennifer Harshman of Harshman Services, and she looked at it and she's like, you should publish this. This is great. And I'm like, I don't want to publish this. There's no reason that it's not going to do anything. It's just, it was written really as my husband calls it a catharsis, a release from grief, But I'm a romance reader, so it's a romance novel, but so it's got a happy ending. So that's where As You Wish came from. And not sure if it's, can you see it? Can you see the book cover? Okay.
Yeah, we can see it.
So, oh, cool. So, that's where As You Wish came from. And so Jennifer Harshman edited it. And Desiree DeOrdo of then DeOrdo Designs, she's the one who covered it, and she did a beautiful job covering it. I still love this cover, and she's the one who covered it. And my husband Matt formatted it, and we uploaded to Amazon. And since then, so many people have come back saying how they've read it and they've loved it and it's their favorite, and how they've had a mother or a friend or something die. And when they read it, they found like hope and peace and comfort after reading it as well. So I thought, that's cool. That's why it was supposed to be written. Because I don't ever think anything's an accident.
That's right. So this was kind of like your getaway from everything. You started writing this, and now you've helped other people through their grief and stuff through the story, kind of.
Yeah, I guess, yeah. It didn't really start out that way. It was just more of like a release for me. But as I kept writing, I realized that if I could help people through the writing, just escape for a little bit of something, or just have just that moment of just, I don't know, yes, just escape, then that's awesome, and that's great. And that's just a gift.
Jack, it's just you. Your Facebook froze for you and kicked you out because your connection sucks. Like the last time I had you on, you lagged everybody out and you kicked me and Heather. So don't be blaming it on Facebook. It's you. No, I'm just kidding. So yeah, no, I totally get that. So Sin on Anti-Titan was kind of like my re-entry into. I wrote it 10 years ago, and I kind of did the same thing. It was like we went through hell last year, and so now. This was kind of something that I brought out as my escape, as my way to, escape from everything that was going on and put that pain and that emotion into another medium. And that's what writing is, and good writing has that emotion.
And it does. It's able to kind of do that escapism, and for whatever the writer wants to put out there, whether it's hope or just taking 15 minutes and just leaving the world behind and doing something different. It really is a gift for everybody.
So I want to kind of go back a second. So you said you were never really a reader, but then you said you read romance. So
okay, so I started reading really after my mom died, and I started reading Christine Feehan, Gina Showalter. My sister-in-law got me into the Stephanie Meyer Twilight books.
Okay.
And that's kind of where everything launched from. from those books.
So those were kind of your inspirations to get into reading.
Yep.
Yeah, see, my favorite series has always been like I've always loved action, fantasy, adventure, and it's like so. I guess you've read the Lord of the Rings at least since you guys watch the movies and you have the
My
marathon.
husband read Lord of the Rings. In fact, he's read the Silmarillion.
Silmarillion.
Yeah, he's read that
The
one.
Silmarillion. Yep.
Yep.
So he's read it. He was like, "Hey, let's watch these movies," and you were like, "Hey, these movies are really good." So you ended up having a marathon every year.
Pretty much, yeah.
That's how it was for me. So like I read Harry Potter and I'm like I was like I want to see the movies. And so when my wife and I first met back in like '04, I think I want to say I don't remember which movie it was that came out, but she was like, "You want to go see what?" She's like, "I'm not going to go see Harry Potter." And so she's like sitting there the whole time with her arms crossed and just like and so then like I don't know, like a month or two later, she's like, "Well, I don't really think that movie was that bad. I really want to read the series." Now she's like a mega freaking Harry Potter fan, and I'm always like, "You're such a nerd," because that's what she told me the first time. She's like, "You're such a nerd." So now I tell her, she's like, "Shut up, those are good movies and books." I was like, "I told you." So it's interesting how that happens. You always meet somebody that has read something, and it's cool seeing those words become motion pictures and see somebody take somebody else's idea and put it into a movie. It's really interesting.
It honestly is. There's several authors that I'm aware of who've had their movies put on Netflix or Passion Flicks. And I always cheer for those authors because they get to see their story come to screen. And I think it'd be awesome to have a book or 5 or all of them come to life. There's an indie author we know who is just a beautiful soul by the name of John Wells. He's out of Louisville. And I would love for him to play John Westerling's character in the Bloom series of books that I have. Because he would be amazing. Everything he does is just, he does a great job in everything. And we're a huge fan of John Wells. So he would be great in it.
I'm super stoked. My favorite series ever is getting ready to come to life, and I'm so upset that he never will get a chance to see what happened. But Brian Jakes, I absolutely loved the Red Ball series. When I was in, I want to say 4th or 5th grade, I stumbled across this old book, and I was like, I would always just go through and I'd look at the spines and find something that sounded interesting or that had something interesting printed on the spine. And that was how I discovered Red Wall. I was like, oh, this looks interesting. It was really worn. I was like, well, obviously it's been read a lot. So I kind of pulled it out. And I was like, oh, this looks really cool. It had animal warriors on it. And so that's how the whole thing started. I read Red Wall and I was like, I fell in love with the series. And I read it all the way up until he passed away, I guess about 6 years ago, 7 years ago. I don't know. Time's been flying by. It flies as you get older. What you think is like been 4 or 5 years, and come to find out, you go back and look and it's been 10, and you're like, what? But I always talk about it. And Steph Wilson, one of the artists that did a piece for the book, he always gives me trouble when I talk about Redwall. He's like the only person in the world that's ever read Redwall. And then Smithers and some of the other people in the audience are always like, I've read that. It is a good series. And so one of my artist friends, Armando Ramirez, actually posted the other day, Netflix bought the rights to all of the books, and they are going to produce movies and a mini series off of it. And I'm like, how fantastic is that?
That's awesome.
Because I'm excited. I can't wait for my kids to get old enough to start reading the stories to them, because it works good for kids all the way up to adults. It's just a great immersive story, and that's the kind of stories that I like. I like stories that you don't know what's going to happen, and they don't give you like this huge plot line. You just, hey, here's this character, and you follow it along the journey, and you just see what happens.
Well, that's exactly how when you pick up Min Eurozan, I don't have a copy of it. 7 Star Press, and we're still getting things because it's so new. I don't have a paperback copy of it yet, but that's how Juden is. When you first meet Juden, she wakes up, and I know it's kind of cliched, but then she starts having these flashback memories as she's in the present. So it's like, why is she here? What is she supposed to be doing? Why is she on a completely different planet than Earth?
The story unfolds around her.
Yeah, and you get to follow her through the journey of the who,
Yes.
what, when, where, and why.
Yeah, so you learn how the world and everything works through the character as the story progresses, which is exactly what I love. You know, that's really awesome. And that's how mine is, you know. That's exactly how my story is, because that's the kind of books that I love. It's like, hey, live through the character. You know, live, breathe, walk in their shoes and find out how the environment around them is. And that makes for an awesome story. It really does.
And it really does, because it's sort of part sci fantasy.
Sci fantasy.
So you get to eat the food that she eats. That's different but the same, you know, of what she would eat on Earth. You know, you get to see the grass color and just different things, and you get to marvel at them as she does.
So what is the elevator pitch for your latest release here?
Oh, we totally had that, didn't we?
Well, I know how I describe it, because it actually started as a short story for an anthology that she was supposed to be writing for, and what she wrote as a short story became chapter 1, and I pitch it as a 300,000 plus word epic. No, 300,000 plus word multi-generational sci fantasy epic romance.
So it crosses lots of genres. But I mean, we did have sort of an elevator pitch for that, but off the top of my head, I cannot remember. I'm so sorry. But it's about a woman from Earth who wakes up and
on a obviously alien planet, not knowing why she's there, and as she realizes what's going on around her, then the reader goes along this journey with her, and then it involves time travel and fall in love with the different iterations of the same man. And
it's almost a cross between Outlander and Doctor Who, and there was one other too. We were talking about this the other day.
I don't know.
There was another one too. So you kind of catch all three of those things. Kind of the Lord of the Rings
ish.
Yeah.
Ish.
Instead of trees, though, it's stars in space, right?
Say it again.
I said instead of trees, it's like it's stars and in space, right?
Right.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
Fantastical planet.
Stars and starlight's very central to the theme.
It's a central theme. Yes, it is.
And Jax apparently has a windstorm going on. He says, it's so windy, I just picked up trash from my backyard and it flew over 6-foot walls. It's been like a hurricane here today, too. I drive a truck, so it was like blowing all over the place. I'm like, oh my gosh. It's terrible.
We had a lot of wind here, too.
Did you?
Yeah.
So, what other books have you written besides Min Eurozan?
Well, I did As You Wish, and I've got the Bloom series of books right now. There are 5. The 5 series, which I'm getting ready this year to release book 4 in the 5 series. The Yours 2 trilogy, which is 3 books. What else do I have back there? Jericho's Walls, which is the first of a sort of a companion piece. It's going to be Joshua's March. Which one am I missing?
I don't know. Just a few of them.
Just a few. Cameras here. So that's the official stack minus Min Eurozan. This one here is the official stack plus As You Wish, which is on my counter.
It's like 13, 14.
I believe there's
15 published
15. 15, yeah. So there's 15. There's Written on Brenda's Heart. And book 2 for that one is coming out this year as well. That'll be the next book, actually. Written on Her Heart. And then there's Underneath My Innocence.
So all these books are available on Amazon, correct?
Yep. Absolutely.
And I will pop that link in there for the audience if you guys want to go check out the books. It's also in the description. So if you guys don't want to go look now, You can go back and look at it later. Maybe. Come on, cooperate here. Is he going to do it? Sorry, my computer's been acting up. There we go. It went. There we go. So what are some of these other stories about? So I see we got Bloom, Blossom.
So Bloom's a real world. So As You Wish and several of the books are more like Christian inspirational romance novels, but there's a lesson or a story behind them. The Bloom series is the real world romance. Bloom starts with Phoenix, who's in a domestic abuse situation, and she meets John Westerling and builds up a friendship with him. She's married to Charles, who is very abusive, and it's through John that she learns that she can be loved.
He helps her through and out of that situation,
and out of the.
And that friendship becomes a romance, and then the rest of the story is launched from there.
Yep.
Yeah, so it really shocks me. It's just, I don't know. It's amazing, to see somebody that you really weren't a reader, and you really never thought about writing, and it's like here you are, 8 years later, and you have all these awesome books under your belt.
I know it's super cliched, but I feel very blessed to be able to write, and so many people have come alongside saying yes to me, and I can never thank them enough for doing so. And without them, without God, really, I wouldn't be where I am today. And he's the one who really gives me the inspiration to write the story, and opens every door for them to be published. So really, it's all about him. So yeah, it's sometimes I look back and I'm just like, oh wow. So I understand completely.
Yeah, and you wasn't for that friend nudging you, saying, "Hey, I know this editor. You probably wouldn't be where you were today." It's nice to have those people who, look at something and go, "Hey, this is something better than what you think. You should really do something with it." And it's like, nah, this is just something that I scribbled down, something that I just threw on here. It's nothing. And they're like, "No, really, you need to do something with it." And you're like, "Oh, whatever, I'll send it in." Just to shut them up. And then you get that. Somebody like, "Wow, I read this and it was really good." And it's like, really? It's like, are you sure you read the same thing that I did?
Well, you totally have had that feeling too, right? Where you've had somebody pick up your stuff and be like, and you're like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, you're just like, whatever. Well,
yeah.
And it's funny too, because, as long as my wife has known me, I mean, like you said, we've been together since 2004. And it was like 2010. I was like, "Hey, I want to get a Chromebook and write a book." And she's like, "What?" I was like, "Yeah, I want to write a book." I'm like, "You didn't know that I've always wanted to write?" It's funny the things you don't know about each other, and then down the road, it's just like, "Oh, okay." And she's just looking at me like I'm nuts, And so I started writing this book, and I was like, she's like, so I give it to her. I was like, "Hey, see what you think." I'm like, "It's not very good." And she's like, "Wow, did you write this?" And I was like, "Yeah, why?" And she's like, "You're just messing with me." I was like, "No, I'm not messing with you. Like, I really wrote this." And she's like, "It's actually really good." She's like, "I didn't think you could do it." And I was like, "Thanks. That makes me feel really good."
Appreciate the encouragement, honey.
Yeah, thanks for the encouragement. So that's okay, though. I got her back for it. So, I wrote up to chapter 3. And I stopped and I put the header on there because I realized it was like 11 o'clock at night and I get up at 3 a.m. for work. And so I stopped there and I was like, "Hey, read for what I've got done and see what you think about it." So she sits down and reads. I go in and get my shower and I'm taking my contacts out and she opens up the door to the bathroom. "You're not done writing." Uh-oh. Since when did my computer give sound effects? I don't know.
Okay, I'm not gonna touch that again. We're back. Okay, sorry.
That's all right. I've dropped out. I've dropped out in the middle of my shows, and the guests are just sitting there like, I don't know where he went.
What happened? What
They're
happened?
like a deer in the headlights. They're like, what do I say? What do I do? I'm like, I'll be
No,
back
I
in
mean-
a second.
and that's just it. Some people that I've talked to at conventions are like, should I write? I'm like, well, do you feel that inclination to write? Yeah. Then write.
Yep.
Well, what if it's not good? And I always think, well, what if it's excellent? What if somebody reads it and it's exactly what they needed to read or wanted to read? And so many people come to me and they're like, well, I have this idea for a book, but I don't think anybody's going to read it. And I said, do you know how many genres there are at Amazon? Do you know how many subgenres there are within those categories at Amazon? And do you know how many people read in all of those things? I said, you look up anything on Amazon as far as a book, you're going to find a category for it. And people who write in that category.
People who read it.
And people who read it.
Well, and that's what that was a
Write the
funny
book.
thing. Yeah, and that was a funny thing. Like I said, I got her back. She come in there and she's like, "You're not done writing," and I'm like, "What? What are you talking about?" And she's like, "You know what you did. You wrote all the way up to chapter 3. Then you put the header for chapter 3. You cannot stop there." And I was like, "Oh, I can't write." She's like,
You got to keep
"You're-"
going now, man.
They're committed.
Yeah, I was like, oh, I don't write. Remember, you didn't think I could do it, but yeah, no, I totally get it, and that's what the joy of writing stuff is. It's like of everything we've gone through, with Roderick's open heart surgeries, all the stuff we've went through for the last 5.5 years. It's like, I funneled a lot of that emotion and stuff into the book, and in a way, if you read the book, like without knowing all that stuff, the book will inspire you because you see somebody that goes through all these adversities, all these problems, and they push through, and it's like it makes you really sit back and think. Like Brian K. Moore says, I have no excuses now for not doing the things that I should do, because other people are pushing through and doing the things, and I wanted it to be an inspiration. That's what my shows are always about, is inspiration. What inspires you to write? What inspired you to draw? Who inspired you to write or draw? And I want this story, people to see it and go, wow, I make a lot of excuses for the things that I do in my life, and maybe it'll inspire them to do something that they've never wanted to do. And the same thing about telling my story about how I ended up where I'm at. It's like I never do it to try to be like, oh, I got all this stuff going on by my book. No, it's like, hey, never let stuff get you down. Push through, because if you do, it's worth it in the end. And that's the message that I want to try to push. And I love how it segues with kind of a little bit with your story of your mom had passed away, and so you started writing, and somebody inspired you to take this book to an editor and show it to them. And you're like, yeah, whatever. And you send it to them. And it's like, and then boom, you have your, first published book. And how does it feel, all 8-9 years later, to be sitting here and going, I've wrote books.
Right. So like I said, some days it just blows me away. And then some other days I'm like, I have 4 book releases this year. Okay, I got to get to work. plus I'm writing a book too. Rick Bradley has asked me to be part of a, I think it's an anthology, wasn't it?
Horror anthology.
A horror anthology. So I'm writing a horror romance right now.
Interesting.
And yeah, and it's actually kind of interesting because it's very Edgar Allan Poe-ish.
Okay.
It's macabre.
And very macabre and very dark. And it's not going to get any brighter. So,
No.
I mean, it just isn't.
But it's a love story.
But it's a romance.
It's a love story.
That's how this works.
So is this like one of those love stories where somebody cuts off their ear and mails it to somebody, or?
No,
No.
it's just mildly creepy, and after a while you go, ugh.
Right? Yeah. Yeah, because it really dips into the paranormal realm, and it's kind of a fun place for me to be.
So Jack asked, he said, "You're writing a horror romance. Please tell me it's not like any of those romantic horror movies that are PG-13 and suck."
No, not at all.
No.
No, actually, Matt's read the first three chapters, and he's like, "Okay, I don't understand," because I told him how the book ends, and he's like, "Okay, that makes a lot of sense. It makes a lot of sense now."
Yeah.
But it's very much you're going through the eyes of the main character,
who's a child,
who starts the book as a 10-year-old, and then you're going to meet her again later when she's older, right? I don't want to give too much away.
No, you're fine.
But the end of it is just like,
once she told me what the end game of the story was, I'm like, okay, I'm starting to put the pieces together of what I've read and what she told me. I'm like,
see, Cathy, you're much nicer than I am. See, if my wife would ask me, where is this going? I'm like, I don't know, read it and find out, Well,
some of the books that I write actually come from dreams. So I'll wake up from a dream, fully formed dream, and be like, I need to write that. So I just start writing it. And that's where this one came from, because Rick Bradley came to me. He's like, "Hey, would you like to be part of this anthology?" I'm like, "Or, okay." Well, okay, true story. My mom's side of the family, we come from gypsy blood. So she has the story that she told me as I was growing up. And it was about how her aunt, the night she was laying in bed taking a nap, and her aunt came to her window and tapped on her window. And so Mom opened the curtain, and she's like, her aunt kind of did this sort of thing, which is kind of cliche, Didn't say anything, but sort of just beckoned. And my mom was like, "No." And she was pregnant with my brother Roger at the time, older brother. And my aunt just sort of, this sort of thing. And Mom's like, "No." So she closed the curtain and went and laid back down, went back to sleep. And she got a phone call a little bit later saying her aunt had died. The same aunt who was standing outside of her window. So creepy stuff like that has been following our family our entire lives.
So she was doing this after the fact that she had passed, and they just hadn't found out about it yet, or like later that day?
Actually, yeah, because Mom did find out later that she had already died
prior to that happening.
Right before doing that. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
so
creepy.
Like I said, creepy stuff like that. I grew up in a house with a ghost, family ghost, actually inherited. And so, like I said, creepy stuff like that. It's very much a part of our family history.
So wait a minute. You think we're just going? So wait a minute. You have a family ghost. We're not glossing over this.
Okay.
So I want to hear about this. You had a family ghost. Tell me all about it. Did it
well,
have
you
a name?
can't, because he's kind of the inspiration for your story.
Well, so his name is Mom. My mom always called him Commodore, but and I can't remember where she said he was back in our history. It wasn't his name, but anyhow, he died and kind of hung around. And then sort of as my mom had 12 sisters and brothers. And so he followed her. And then I remember being super young and waking up, and there's this person, specter, entity standing at the foot of my bed. And I didn't think anything about it. All right. So I just went back to sleep, because he's been there as long as I can think of, to be honest. And so when Matt and I got together, Matt actually woke up one night, and Commodore was just kind of standing there, and it freaked Matt out. And he's like, "Who was that?" And I'm like, "Oh, that's just Commodore."
Well, she told me about Commodore before, and we had just gotten married, and we were at her parents' house and upstairs in the bedroom, and we were sleeping. And it's the middle of the night, probably 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning. And I just knew, you get that feeling that somebody's watching you, right? Have you had that feeling before where somebody's looking at you, right? So my eyes pop open, and I look at the foot of the bed, and there's this vaguely man-shaped silhouette in the doorway.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, well, it might have been like her dad or her brother, just checking up on us. And as
or
I looked,
trying to play a joke on you or something.
But anyway, as I looked, I saw this vaguely man-shaped silhouette in the doorway. It just gone.
Yep.
Well, I mean, I can't say it's totally unbelievable. So this is a story that I never told on air before, and this is dead to real true. I was sitting at a stoplight in Washington, and I've been driving this area for close to 23 years now, and I've always pulled up to this light when it turns green. I'm just like, zoom, and I go, and I'm sitting at this intersection, so it's 2 lanes both ways, so 4 lanes total, and it's 4 lanes going both ways in the intersection. So I'm pulled up trying to go south, and next to me, I'm in the right lane, mind you. Next to me in the inside lane is a tractor trailer, so I can't see anything coming from the west at all whatsoever. In normal me, I was a kid then. I was like 18 or 19. I'm sitting at the light just waiting for it to go so I can get around this stupid tractor trailer that's in the fast lane, And the light turns green, and I just had this like feeling wash over me. It was like, somebody's like, stop. And I sat there, and it was so uncharacteristic of me. My wife's looking at me like there's something wrong. She's like, the light's green, get around the tractor trailer. And I'm like, no. And like, before I could even get no out of my mouth, and she'll swear by it, like before I could even get no out of my mouth, a tractor trailer from the west blew through the red light. And if we would have went, it would have killed both of us. Like, no joke. Russ and his crazy stories. Thanks, Wendy. I appreciate it. So, and it's not a crazy story. It's totally real. Like, I bring it up to my wife all the time. I'm like, you remember back in like 2005 or 6 when we lived in Washington and we were sitting at that light and you were like, why aren't you going? And I just had that feeling. I'm like, it still creeps me out to the day. It's like a guardian angel was like, don't go. It's unsafe. And I couldn't see that way. And so for that tractor trailer to blow through there like that and something so uncharacteristic, I knew it wasn't just coincidence, So that's my crazy story for the night. Thanks, Wendy, for supporting my crazy stories. I appreciate that. It looks like we got Ed in the house. What's going on, Ed?
Hi, Ed.
Hello, Ed.
Hello, Ed.
Ed Williams is one of my artist buddies.
Does anybody have any questions? Because I would love to field any questions.
Questions, Jack? I'm sure you got a whole bunch
story,
of them.
Russell. Man, dude. Yeah.
No, I wasn't living Final Destination because I wouldn't be here if it was Final Destination. That's not the only time that's happened either. There was one other time when I was like 13 or no, I had to have been 15 because I had my yes, exactly, guardian angels. And it has to be the same guardian angel watching over me because when I was 15 and a half and I had my permit, I was driving back and forth from school to work. So I had a full-time job. I went to school, I left school and went straight to work. And I had similar kind of situation happen to me when I was driving. It was like, be careful. And like right as I pull up on this intersection, some idiot comes barreling out down the road and makes a right in front of me. And like if I wouldn't have slowed down and been like, why do I have this weird feeling? I would have been hit. I'm late and I feel bad that I don't know what is happening. Do I have a spider tingle? I guess it's the guardian angel tingle. So, Wendy, since you're late to catch up, we've been talking about Cathy's books and what inspired her to write. So it's kind of insane. I don't ever do any research on the people that I have on the show. I don't want to go in knowing too much and not asking the right questions. Because a lot of times people are busy, life's busy. There's going to be a lot of people that are going to go back and rewatch this on the playback. And I want to make sure I ask the questions that those people are going to want to know. So I don't do a lot of research on any of the guests that I have on. I check into them, like people that I don't know, and I'm like, is this person crazy? Is there something I should be worried about? And that's about the scope of it, unless it's somebody that I already know that I've had on here several times. And so like that was like a total shock to me because I was like, I had all these questions in my head. I was gonna be like, who was your favorite author? That you looked up to, and it's like, oh, I was never really a reader. And I was like, what? And just
doesn't help me at all.
No, I was like, there goes like 25 questions I have in my head.
I say you ask him anyway. Let's see what happens.
And then, so Jack does have a question. So Jack says, Cathy, what was the first story you ever wrote, and did you actually make it into a book?
The first story that I ever wrote was As You Wish. And yeah, that did make it into a book. And it's available on Amazon.
It's available on Amazon.
Available on Amazon. It's this one here. And gorgeous cover. It's got the oranges and the pinks and the beautiful, beautiful cover and the yellow. Desiree Dordo did a beautiful job with this cover. It's gorgeous, gorgeous. And it's about Elizabeth Seraphim, who lost her husband. She's got 6 kids. And
She got a bunch of kids. Moves to Scotland, meets Daniel Templeman, who's an actor. And it's very much this one was actually inspired by like pulp culture. For most of the book, she never sees his face.
And he also says, can you show the stack of books again? His internet crapped out.
Stack of books? Sure. Well,
Yeah, and so the story behind it was, Jack, since your internet crapped out and you missed out. So her mom had passed away, and so she took that grief and kind of was like, I'm going to sit down and write. And she wrote this story. And so now that this story, As You Wish, is been published, there have been people that have read it that have had relatives or somebody close to them that have passed away, and that story really hit home for them and gave them hope.
Yep, that's it. There you go. So
I don't think it's based on The Princess Bride.
It's referenced, and there's a lot of pop culture references.
There's
a lot of pop culture references.
Superman and Batman and a whole bunch of other stuff.
Right.
And the idea of the romance for me was her falling in love with Daniel as a person first.
Right.
And then once she got to know who he was, what his occupation was, oh, he's a famous actor. Well, that's cool. That's not why I like him, but that's cool. Right. And that's where the story came in. And really that's how, to me, my own philosophy is not necessarily what a person does in life, but how they treat other people and who they are. And for me, if I see someone who was gentle and kind and caring and loving, they could be any occupation. I don't care what they are. And I would respect them and admire them so much. And that's very much Elizabeth in As You Wish.
So now that you've written books, you've gotten more into, like you said, you started reading the romance books. You started out with like Twilight and some of the other books. Who is an author that you look up to? Like, who's an author that you've read their works and you're like, wow, I really want to write something like this?
That's a great question. I really started out with Christine Feehan and Gina Showalter, really admiring their stuff. And Stephanie Meyer, I can't remember who does it, but I read them, of course, and then sort of lead into, you ready for this? Here's our jump. Are you ready? E.L. James. I did really like the 50 Shades series. I'm a psychology major, so I do have a degree in psychology. So for the psychological aspects of the 50 Shades books, I really liked. Did a lot of page flipping for the sex scenes because I was like, okay, great, I'm married. Okay, I know how this works. Okay, but I love the psychological aspects of 50 Shades. So E.L. James really was a huge inspiration as well.
Yeah, so did you write did you read the, what is it, 50 Shades Darker or whatever it was, where it was from Christian's point of view?
So E.L. James has just released the pre-order for Freed, which is the 3rd book in Christian's perspective. And I've pre-ordered a signed copy from the UK today. So what I'm going to do, and my husband and I have actually talked about this, I'm going to wait till all 3 books are out, and I'm just going to read them straight through.
So they've actually released the second one. See, I didn't know they released the second one. My wife got into this. My wife was into the series, and so I seen that they had released it from Christian's perspective. So I was like, oh, I'll pick it up for her, and she'll like it. But I had no idea. So like with everything that's happened over the last couple, 2 years. Like she didn't even know this book had came out. This is the book that I just got her recently. Was
Oh yeah, that's from Snow's perspective, or
It's his growing up.
yeah.
Yeah, so like she really loved Hunger Games, and so this was what I got her for Valentine's Day. She's like, I didn't even know this book came out. She was like super excited. I was like, I didn't either, but I heard it came out, and every time I go to the store, they're out of it, and then I go there and they had like 50 copies of it. I'm like, hey, perfect, Valentine's Day, here you go.
Well, good job.
Thanks.
No, Gray is actually the first book that E.L. James did from Kristen's perspective.
That's right, it's Gray.
It's Gray, and then there's Darker.
Okay.
That's the second one. And the third one is Freed, but she doesn't have a cover for that released yet. So, yeah, but she does have a pre-order up for it. So I'm actually excited about reading it from his perspective. Yeah. Because, like I said, I'm a psychology major, and I love the psychological aspects of it. And everything from the first 3 books was from Anna's perspective. This is going to be from his perspective. And I think for me, and people who read much like I do, they will love that part of it.
And then Jack says, Cathy, are you planning to cross over into Russell's genre and maybe a collaboration?
So, I'm sorry, what genre do you write in, Russell?
So you know what, this book here, so actually, the first book I wrote was Taking a Step in the Walk of Life. Was actually the very first book that I wrote back in 2010. It was a story. So it was. I've never really talked about this either. So this is kind of fun. So it was one of the first stories that I really wanted to delve into because it was something that was really bad happening all over, where soldiers that were going overseas to Iraq and in the war and everything were coming home, and their houses were being foreclosed on, and in our area there was soldiers coming home that didn't have a home. The loan companies foreclosed on it because say their wife passed away while they were gone, or something crazy happened. It came home to nothing. And so that's kind of what this story was based on. Is it was kind of like a romance, story where, you met the couple from when they first met and they fell in love. They had kids. He ended up getting drafted into the military. He went off and something happened to the mom. She passed away and the kid went into government care, and the house was, of course, foreclosed on by the bank and was sold off. So, he comes home and his wife's gone and all this stuff happened. He didn't know about it because he was in enemy hands the whole time. And so I don't really want to go into it because I may actually eventually release that book. I don't know. Okay. But that was kind of the first book that I wrote. And I really liked it, and I've never showed it to anybody. Like my wife's never even read it. And so this is the story that I've always really wanted to write. And that was kind of like, I don't know why I went off on some kind of wild tangent, because I like romance books too, and I'm not afraid to admit it. I don't mind them one bit. I like sci-fi, I like fantasy, I like romance, drama, crime, horror. I cross a bunch of different genres. And so does this book. This book's not just a sci-fi, book. It's a thriller. It's a human story. It's got a little bit of romance in it. It's got a lot of fantasy in it. Because, of course, you've got this awesome beast wherever he went. I got so many pictures in here. It's not even funny. I need to start cutting it down. So, you've got Wyvern Knight here with Raziel on his back.
That's cool.
And so, it does. It blends a lot of genres. It's like, I don't see how people can, like, just pick one genre and stick with it. Like, as mine, it's like, it's a human story. There's going to be romance. There's going to be drama. There's going to be action. And it's going to have a sci-fi element to it. And it's going to have a fantasy element to it, too, because of some of the creatures and stuff that Raziel encounters. So I don't really have one specific genre that I stick to.
Mm-hmm. See, it's fun to sort of play within the boundaries of no boundaries and no rules, because then you can include a dragon. You can include whatever you want. And that's the true love of fiction and being able to write fiction. And it's actually so funny because Yours to Love, right? Pass me that book, please. Yours to Love is the story of Ruthie Eden. There's a lot of people, and so Ruthie is in her 30s, never been on a date. I know, weird. Never kissed a guy because she has always waited for God to tell her who's supposed to be my husband. So she's waited, and she's not really jumped into a relationship. Okay, because she wanted to make sure that the guy that she falls in love with is the right one. Okay, so when she meets Max, who was a YouTuber, right? She kind of gets all these signs saying he's the one, marry him, that sort of thing. So she takes it slow to make sure that she's doing what she's supposed to be doing. So she's very, I guess, ethically, morally, spiritually guided.
There you go.
Right? And so my most liked review on Goodreads for that book is that it's an unbelievable story. Nobody would do that. And I'm like, hang on just a second. So when I decided that I was going to start dating when I was out of high school, I knew exactly the kind of guy that I wanted to marry. It's a true story, okay? I knew I wanted a guy who wasn't, this is my list, all right, who didn't smoke, who didn't drink, who wasn't a fisherman, right? Who didn't do the outdoor thing. I had a list. I straight up had a list, right? Who was good with kids, who would make a great father to our children. And it wasn't a conscious effort. Like, I didn't go to look for this guy, right? But when I met Matt, he checked off every single one of those boxes. And we dated for a while, then we didn't. And then we got back together, and that's when he proposed and said, hey, let's spend our life together. And this last Sunday?
This past Saturday,
we celebrated our 25th wedding anniversary.
Well, congratulations on that. That's a big milestone.
Thank you very much. But that's just it. The sum of Ruthie's character, and I think as a writer, we do write certain aspect of herself into the character, right? To a certain point. I get Ruthie because that's what I did. And I really didn't want to settle. I knew exactly what I wanted and was willing to go, this is it. But my most loved review on Goodreads is how that's nobody would do that, and how that's not real. And I'm like, one, it's a fictional book.
Yeah.
Of course it's not real. Okay.
But two, I do know people that have done that. I know somebody that was 34.
Yeah.
And they waited until they met the person that they knew that they wanted to spend the rest of their life with. And that is, people are unrealistic in saying that that's unrealistic, because there are people out there that will wait for the one that, and I don't think it's unbelievable. Just personally, because I know people that have done it.
Right.
So do I.
The situational irony of that is if you go choke on a sprinkle.
Sprinkles.
No, I'm just kidding.
That if you read the reviews for Yours to Love, right, the one that says completely unrelatable character, completely unrealistic, right?
Yeah.
This could never happen this way, right? The very next review is, this could have been my story.
Yeah.
Right? So it's
yeah.
So you're right.
Well, and that's the thing. Well, and that's the thing. When you write a book and you write stories and you get into this kind of thing, you're going to get the people that are going to be like, this is absolutely stupid, because not everything's going to be everybody's forte, but some people just they have to be rain on everybody's parade and be like, this is unrealistic, there's no way that this would ever happen in a million years. And somebody could literally walk up to that person and be like, I was 36 when I got married, and I did anything with anybody, and I dated, but I never settled down until I found the one that met all my things. And they'd be like, you're crazy. I know you had to have done something before that. You just can't convince some people stuff. That's just, gotta love the glory of the internet.
Well, you're free to speak your mind at any moment that you wish. And that's the beauty of it.
Yep.
We can just keep scrolling though.
And Wendy said, Kathy, keep asking Russell questions and challenge him. So she
Right?
wants you to challenge me. Like, man, no, this is my show. I don't want to be challenged.
No, that's not our job.
No, I'm just kidding. I'm kidding. So we talked a little bit about who your inspirations were and some of your favorite authors were. So what one genre would you think is the craziest genre that you wouldn't write in, but you kind of would want to? Like, what's the one thing that...
Okay, so true story. As You Wish is my sweet romance. Okay, and they hold hands, and I think there's a kiss.
He steals a kiss from her
He
on the
steals
cheek.
a kiss on the cheek. Okay, right?
Yeah.
So I really wanted to challenge myself. So I wrote the Min Eurozan, and that's the sci-fi time travel, space romance. And so in the Bloom series, it talks about domestic abuse. It talks about Evelyn was a stripper. Jennifer's dealing with pornography and coming out of that. And in the 5 series, going back to I forgot his name. Oh, Luke's an actor. So I kind of have a thing for actors. I don't know why. Either way, so he's an actor. Max is a YouTuber. So I went to Jericho's Walls. Jericho's Walls, that'd be a good one. I wanted to write something a little spicier, right? And it's something a little more sexier. So I wrote about there's some spankings going on. So kind of delving into that and some sexy foreplay. And after that one, I was like, well, I want to do something completely different than what I've been writing. So I wrote this one, which is Underneath My Innocence.
Okay.
And that was about one woman who falls in love with 2 men. So that's what that one's about. And how they blend their lives together and create the 2 men create a relationship with her and her with them. And that is a insta love. Because I've never written an insta love, if you're familiar with that term. That means people are instantly attracted to each other and they instantly fall in love. Instantly. Like ramen noodle soup.
Yeah.
And it's a sweet, erotic Christmas romance. So I never written a Christmas book. I never written an erotic romance. And I've never written an insta love. So that's where this one's at.
So you knocked out three birds with one stone.
Yep.
And the audience is having fun making fun of me.
Was it?
She said he asks us lots of questions all the time.
All the time.
And then Jack said, Wendy, I thought that was Russell's job to ask a bunch of questions. and she said, I guess, Jack, but hearing him answer questions is more fun than me answering them.
It's kind of funny because Kathy, when she started reading, would just read just about anything. There's some things that she wouldn't because they're just absolutely hold no interest. But she reads just about everything, so she's written just about everything. There's a whole slew of manuscripts that are kind of sort of getting towards being published.
Yep.
One's a political thriller, one's another sci-fi
rock
one.
star romance.
You have a rock
I've got some
star
of those in there.
romance.
Yeah.
She's got a dragon shifter book in the works, right? She's got a
We
whole,
won't talk about dragon books.
No,
Right.
right. Dragon Book.
right.
No,
It's cool
it's a
because we
funny
watched
story.
this movie. We'd watched a movie. Was it made in Russia,
It's called I Am Dragon,
right?
and it's on Amazon Prime.
And
It's one of my favorites.
not a sponsor. Hashtag not a sponsor. But it kind of inspired her to write like what would happen like after the story. So she kind of got that thing going on and how that would kind of flip the roles that were in it.
Yeah.
You know, and it's kind of a fun read. And the fun thing about all of her stories is that they're kind of interwoven together. Like they'll reference one from another one. So all her stories take place in the same shared universe, including this sci-fantasy Min Eurozan and the Dragon Shifter one that's in works. It's all in the same universe. So you'll find out why the Westwings are called the Westwings in Bloom. Oh, forgot about My Sapphira.
Oh, My Sapphira is a gothic paranormal romance. That one's coming out this year too. So there is one genre I cannot write in, and that is young adult. Would I try my hand at it? No. Because I can't write in it.
Because she's neither young nor an adult.
Not necessarily. I just can't write in it. I don't know why, I just can't.
Jackass, Cathy, have you ever tried to do a love story with monsters from the monster's perspective?
He says yes.
He says
Go ahead.
yes. She's like, I don't know.
That's kind of what this horror romance for the anthology is, kind of. And we're talking about the Dragon Shifter book. It's the dragon is who falls in love. So, yeah, she's writing it.
He says yes.
So the funny story about the dragon thing is this. So my wife gets a Nook. I got her one for Christmas, and years ago. It's been like 7 or 8 years ago. So you know how they have those free books like every month you can download, and they were like some of them were like an introduction, some of them were like book 1 to a series just to get you hooked into the series. And so she downloaded a bunch of these books, just like because she bought 50 Shades of Grey, so they were recommending other books, and she was downloading them. Well, so her mom got a Nook for Christmas the following year. And Tiffany, my wife, still hadn't read most of these books that she got. So her mom's like, hey, can you, because you can Nook share. You can share from one Nook to another. This was before the newer ones came out. And so she's like sharing all these books to her mom. So her mom's just hanging out reading. And she reads this book that Tiffany shared to her. And it was like hardcore, like it was like dragon porn, like fully descriptive. And her mom, so like she waits until Tiffany gets up to her mom's house. And she's like, so Tiffany, by the way, I've been meaning to ask you, have you ever read this book before? And Tiffany's like, no, why? She's like, read this. And she shows it to her. And I think my wife turned 50 Shades of Red. Like I was like, what's so funny? And I was reading and I was like, whoa, it was pretty funny. So
you need to pick up Underneath My Innocence and read that with Tiffany then.
It's a couple's book.
It is we do market it as a couple's book.
So what's it called? Underneath the Innocence?
Oh, show him the book cover so he recognizes it on Amazon.
Oh, so that's the Christmas one. Yeah.
It's actually a fun read. But I do recommend it as a couple's book.
What are you talking about, Jack? There's no rules on this show. So it is recommended as a couple's book. Now, why is it recommended as a couple's book, if I can ask, please?
Because go ahead.
Because other than explicit descriptors,
I gotcha.
Right? It is actually a very, very interesting, and I've never thought of this before, love story. And like she calls it a sweet erotic love story, because it is. It's like take that sweet romance element with really, really descriptive
sex scenes. Yeah, and then blend them together.
Oh, okay.
So you get the aw with the whoa.
Oh.
The all with the whoa. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with that,
right?
Like I said, my wife's read
Couples
the
book.
50 Shades of Grey, so I mean, my wife's read the 50 Shades of Grey and some of the other books like that. So it's something that she would be like, oh, okay, you know.
Well, because it's Insta Love, it starts off on page 1.
Starts off with a bang.
It starts off with a bang on page 1.
Like a literal bang, or no? I'm just
Yes.
That's great. That's great.
That's great.
So I got to check this out now. I'm totally intrigued. And don't worry, I've already got the Amazon pulled up on here since we were share screening it earlier.
It's gonna be one clicking.
Oh yeah, page one. It starts off right in the get go. Mm-hmm.
So one last question I want to ask you, and then I don't want to keep you guys too long. So if you had the choice to meet any author, what author would that be?
I don't know. I think I would. Wow, that's a great one. It would have to be Gina Showalter or Christine Feehan. Every year we get to go to book signings and things like that, and I get to meet so many talented authors, and I think it'd be Gina or Christine, or Stephanie Meyer to say thank you for writing that, or Yale James for saying thank you for taking that on the phone, because it helped to start my writing journey. But I think it'd be either Gina Showalter or Christine Feehan, because they were so instrumental in getting me started. And I mean, I could never thank them enough for just following their heart and doing what they did and inspiring other people to do the same thing.
There's some weird noises coming from behind me. My wife's printing something out on the printer, and I about fell out of my chair.
What about you, Russell? Who would you meet?
Man, I don't know. It's a really good question. I don't know, because I am so cross, just so many different mediums of. I consume pretty much every type of media. So I read manga, I read comic books, I read books, I watch movies, I watch anime. There's so much stuff that I consume. If I had one choice, alive or dead, it would be Brian Jakes. I would love to have had the chance to meet him and tell him how much. Yeah, now she's texting me. Put some paper in the printer. Get out of here. I'm live.
I'm doing something, man.
I'm doing something, man. So, I would really have loved to have the chance to meet him, because when I started reading the books, like I said, I was like 8 or 9. And even, as a teenager, and even, when I was 18, 19 and in college, every time a book would come out, I was like a kid in a candy store. I was like, oh my gosh, the next installment of the Redwall series is out. And I'm like, I gotta go get it. And everybody's like, what are you talking about, man? And I would stay up, those were those books that you would stay up at night, and you'd get home from work, you'd eat dinner, you'd get a shower, you'd settle down. It's like 9:15, 9:30. You're like, I'll read a little bit of this book. And before you know it, it's 2:00 in the morning, and you're like, all right, just one more chapter. And you just can't put it down. And there were a lot of memories of those books. I mean, it was just a phenomenal series, and I really wish, I could have had the chance to meet him. And then, I don't know. I mean, it's just there's so many. There's so many. And I don't know if I would want to do books, or if I would want to do. I mean, another one that I would love to meet would be, the creator and the writer for the manga Full Metal Alchemist. I can't think of the name right now, so don't ask. I can't think of it off the top of my head.
Yeah, our older son's into that one.
Oh my gosh, Full Metal Alchemist is just such a mind-blowing story. And depending on which one you watch. So the Full Metal Alchemist, the original series that was done, starts off with the manga, and then it goes off on its own because the manga wasn't finished being written yet. So they passed the manga up and then just made up their story as they went. So Brotherhood came out several years later, and Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood is the same story, so to speak, but it actually follows the manga because the manga was finished being written at that time. So they're both really good, and I don't want to say one's better than the other because I like the original because it was the first one that I watched that got me into the manga. But the second one's really good because the second one takes and builds on what the first one started on and makes it more of a spiritual heaven and hell sort of story. You know, they're seeking the knowledge of the gate, and it's like opening the gate to hell, and you know they're opening up a can of worms with trying to bring back their mother and all that. So I mean, it's a very very heartfelt story between Ed and Alphonse Elric. You know, just the relationship they had and all the hurt and the loss that they went through when their dad, you know, never came back from the war, and you know they were taking care of their mom, and then their mom gets sick and dies, you know, and they're little boys, and it's like, what would you do in their situation? And you know, if alchemy was real, would you, you know, it makes you stop and think, if this were real, what would I do? And you have to tend to lean more towards, I would probably do the same thing that they did. I would probably try to bring my mom back, because as a little kid, you know, going through that much hurt, it's hard to rebound from that. And so it's a great story, and they both are almost the same from like the first 5 episodes, and then Brotherhood really veers off because that's when the first one was like, all right, we're just going to keep writing this, and you know we're going to make it our way. And so it's a really great story. That's another one that I absolutely love. My wife hated anime, so I never really got to finish watching it like the way I wanted to. I only get to watch it every once in a while when she wasn't home, because she's like, oh, turn this off, this is stupid. But again, like the Harry Potter thing, you know, I sat down and I'm like, finally, I'm like, you know what? I haven't seen Full Metal Alchemist since we lived in Washington, which is like back in 2007, 2008. Well, it was 2006, 2007, because we bought this house in 08. And I told her, I said, we're going to sit down and we're going to watch Full Metal Alchemist. I'm like, I don't care if you don't like it or not, but at least give it a shot from the beginning. Because when we started watching, it was like halfway through and she couldn't get into it. I'm like, watch it from the beginning, give it a few episodes and see what you think. So now she loves anime. We watch it all the time.
Oh, awesome.
I know, right? Awesome for me, because now I can watch all the cool stuff like Van Helsing and Claymore, and one of my other favorite ones is Outlaw Star. I love so many different mediums. I mean, it's great. I love writing. It depends on what mood you're in. Like reading a book, like what we do, what we're doing. It's nice because it's one of those things that you can settle down at the end of the day, and you don't have all this stuff forced into your head, all these quick moving pictures, and you know, you're like trying to keep up with this movie and you get lost and you're just like overwhelmed. Books, you can take them at your own pace and you can imagine the world as you go, and you have to use your imagination instead of let somebody else feed it to you. You can think about it for yourself. And then there's days where you get home and I'm just like, all right, I just want to watch something. You pop a movie in or an anime or something like that. So I'm all over the place with stuff.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
What?
No, who was that author that inspired you to start writing?
You know, what inspired me to start writing was back in, oh man, 95, 94, 95, something like that. I always read, you know, ever since I was little. Like, I think from like first grade, I was constantly checking out books from the library. I loved reading. I still do love reading. And I guess it was like, I want to say third or fourth grade or something like that. You know, our teacher gave us these sheets and we had to color them, and then we had to, you know, make up a story to go with them. And then later on, when I got into, I guess it was sixth grade, I had a teacher, it was Miss Tamir, and she did kind of the same thing. She gave us these pictures we had to color, and we had to write a story on it. So I wrote like a 8 or 9 page story. I mean, granted, they only had to be like one page, but I made up like this whole world and this huge plot line and everything that was going on off this one picture. And the teacher's just like, this is really awesome. If you keep writing stuff like this, you could do something with it one day. And I've always been creative, like Dungeons and Dragons and stuff like that, making up stories and stuff as you go. My brother and I would play that when we were younger. We would just make up storylines. And then my brother, went away to live, because he was my stepbrother. So he went to live with his dad when I was in third grade. So from third grade on, I was like an only child. And so I went from having a brother to not having a sibling, and I had to do stuff on my own. And so I would create like these Lego towns and like my own fantasy world, and all this stuff was going on. And that's when like the writing and stuff really picked up for me, is I was making my own stories. And that's what kept me going. Because, when I was a kid, our parents didn't have a lot of money. And, I had like a Game Boy when like the, Super Nintendo came out. And, like I got a Sega Genesis when the PlayStation 1 was out and the PlayStation 2 was getting ready to come out. I was always way behind. I'm just using that for an example. We didn't get stuff until it got super, super cheap. So part of being creative is what helped get me through my childhood. And so it's kind of neat how it goes full circle, as an adult. Xeno Nanite Titan was my release, my escape from the real world with everything that was going on in my life. And that's kind of where it all started for me.
That's great.
Do what?
Russ, what's your next project?
This will be my project. So this book is over 900 pages.
Is that all?
That's all. Yeah.
Is that all?
and so book one in the 6x9, it's a little over 200 pages. I stopped it a little earlier than I wanted to, just because of the fact, since I'm splitting it up into a trilogy, so that way people aren't like investing in a 900 page book. I felt like if I went on from this point, it would really ruin some of the plot twists and things that happen in the story. And I felt that this was a really good place because it's a really big cliffhanger. And she said, "Yes, Cathy, keep these questions coming." She's loving it. I'm being in the hot seat. Wait, where are we going? We missed a bunch of stuff here. So yeah, he said Russell's parents asked him why he was failing English when he's reading all these books constantly. What's up, failing English? Get out of here. What were you trying to say about Fullmetal Alchemist? Gene Starwind. Yeah, Gene Starwind, Outlaw Star. Whoa, I didn't want to hit that. Hi, Smithers is here. This is when I have Morgan Freeman narrating of Russell's life, saying this is when Russell's mind split in two. Oh, Jesus. So this will be my project. This will be my project for a while. So book 2, I'm currently writing. I'm trying to find a good place where I want to stop with it, because I always in my head, darn stray hairs, I always in my head had a starting point and an end point, and I knew what was going to happen in between. I never planned on breaking that up. And so now I'm like, all right, do I want to stop it here? Or do I want to stop it here? And then I ended up doing a whole complete inner rewrite on book 1. So from like chapter 3 on, just take all of the rest of the book and kind of like throw it away, because the story's still going to take place the way that I originally had it, but now there's new characters, there's a twist. Wyvern Knight was a new addition to the story that I added when I picked it back up last year. So this is really my main project, because even though the story is still going to play out the same, there's a lot of stuff that's changed in between, because going back all these years later, I look at it and I'm like, wow, this is a huge plot hole. I need to fix this. And so I fixed it. And in fixing that, it forever changed the rest of the book with the new characters and everything that happened. After this, I want to try to say that I'll probably try to release my first book that I ever wrote, the manuscript for that, of Taking Steps in the Walk of Life. That was kind of the book I finished in 2012 when we got married. I had just finished it. And that's kind of where I got the inspiration for the title of the book, is because that was what we had on our cake. was it had footprints that went around the tiers of the cake, and it was like, you know, uh, something about, you know, together in the walk of life, basically.
Mhm.
And so that was kind of like, I wanted to put that into something else, like, you know, using it for the book title because it had meaning to it to me.
It sounds beautiful.
Here we go. Russell's M. Night Shyamalan Ding Dong came out with What's a Twist. Sorry, I always call him M. Night Shyamalan, Shyamalan Dong Ding Dong, just because it's funny.
You know, my favorite M. Night film is?
Which one? Mine's Unbreakable.
No, hang on. It was right there in my head, and I was about to say it, and it went away.
It went away, didn't it?
Stuart Little.
Oh, Stuart Little. I did not know that was an M. Night Shyamalan. Really?
Yes, it was.
See, I've always loved Unbreakable from the first time that I seen it, and like all these years went by and they never did a sequel to it, and I was just like blown away that they would just end the story there. And so when I heard that Split was coming out, and I'm like, no way, they're finally doing it, because I've been telling people for like forever. I'm like, man, you've never seen Unbreakable, and they're like, what's that? And I'm like, it's got Bruce Willis in it. You know, he plays, you know, a man who finds out, you know, he's a real life superhero because he can't be hurt. I'm like, it's a really good story. And they'd always be like, oh, I tried watching that movie you recommended me, and I fell asleep 15 minutes into it. I'm like, yeah, but, you know, it's a slow burner, and as you watch it, it gets really good, and it's insane, you know, the stuff that happens. And then, you know, it builds up to finding out, you know, about Samuel L. Jackson's character. I really love that story. And so I didn't finally watch Split until last year, when Mr. Glass came out. Or I don't know, it was just called Glass. When Glass came out, I got Glass and Split. We already had Split. I just was like, I don't want to watch it until, you know, Glass comes out. And so once that came out, we did a marathon. We watched all three of them. I was like, man, this movie is awesome. And when we got to the end at Glass, like, I was blown away. Like, I totally did not see that ending coming. And that's why I love that series so much. That's the kind of movies I love. If I get to the end of the story and I don't know what's going on, that's a winner in my book, you know?
See, that's why I love the romance horror story. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm going for at the end of that story as well.
Wow, those are the best stories. I mean, it's the worst sitting down with my wife trying to watch something, or, you know, we're reading something, or, you know, anything. I'm just like, oh yeah, this is how it's going to end. And then it ends that way. And I was like, oh, that was disappointing. You know, but when, you know,
our daughter Jessa, she was a reader for the longest time. And then she read so much that she was predicting the ends of the books before they were done. And after a while, she just stopped reading.
True story. She'll say, Jess, what do you think about this? Right? She'll pick up a book, read the first chapter, and say, this is how it ends. And we'll flip to the end, like, yep, that's how it ends.
Exactly how it ends.
So she stopped reading. She'll watch a TV show or a series or something if she's interested in it, right? And like half hour into the program, she's like, it's going to do this, 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 and this. And sure enough, it does, because she picks up on the tropes that fast.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of how I am too, and that's what's so good about the indie books is, you know, a lot of these mainstream published books, they go with what does everybody like right now? What's the niche right now that everybody loves, and they try to work every book towards that niche. Like, oh yeah, this needs to be more like this. Oh, this needs to be more like this because it's what's selling right now.
Yes,
but,
it is.
You know, here's the thing. Everybody asks me, well, why do you want to indie publish? It'd be so much easier if you get an agent and you publish your book and, you know, let somebody else do it, and then they'll print 100,000 copies and you get checks rolling in the mail. And it's like, because it's not about the money. It's not about making a story that's going to sell 100 million copies and I'm going to be rich off of it, and in 10 years it's meaningless. I'm not here to, you know, be a 10-year book that's sitting on the shelf at Dollar Tree because, you know, 10 years ago it was great, but now it's crap. I want to be one of those books like Lord of the Rings that, you know, it goes out there and people are like, I don't know what to think about this because it's different. And then, you know, in 20, 30, 40 years, somebody picks up the book and they're like, dude, you guys got to read this book. And then somebody else reads it and they tell their friends. And then, like, in 40 years, when I'm in the ground, you know, they're making movies about Zeno and Anite Titan and how awesome he was. You know, that's to me what writing is it needs to be something that can last and not something that's just a fad. There's the word I was looking for.
Almost cookie cutter or template
Yes.
writing. Yes, it does sell. Yes, it does sell well. But to write what an author, a writer is inspired to write, that is creative, it is original, you know, that is, to me, gold. I mean, it's straight up gold. Because it's not what everybody else is writing in the same way everybody else is writing it. And that's what makes it one of those things where you're not quite sure what's going to happen because it's uncharted territory.
Right. So, like, just think the last 10 years. Within the last 10 years, 3 titles jump to mind, right? Hunger Games, Divergent, Maze Runner.
Oh, Divergent is such a good series, and
right, but they all had about the same theme,
yep,
and the same setting, and the same ideals behind it. And how many other stories or novels could have been written by those companies that saying, you know what, we need another Divergent,
yeah,
we need another Maze Runner, we need another Hunger Games.
And I really like Divergent, but that, you know, that's the funny thing I brought up to my wife. He's like, when we watched, because I never read the Maze Runner books, and we started watching, I'm like, you know, this is just like the Hunger Games and Divergent series. And it was so much that, you know, the Divergent series, they didn't even finish the movies. They decided they were going to make it a TV show because it bombed so bad. And then the TV show never even happened. And so you've got some people that are like diehard Divergent fans that are all, you know, upset because the series was never finished. But it's like, you know, this has been done before so many times. They realized they couldn't make any money on it.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. And that's just it. I mean, whether trying to bring those novels into movies and what sells in the movies, like it's this. So every movie now has these elements in it, or every novel's got these elements in it. Then it's all the same thing again.
Yeah.
So independent writers can write whatever they feel like, not have to say, okay, well, the publisher needs this type of story, so that's what you're writing. It's like, no, I'm going to write my story. If people read it, phenomenal. If they don't read it, they'll get around to it.
So that's why I am so excited about the authors who get their movies on like Netflix or Passionflix or wherever else, or, you know, whoever else is picking up these original writers, you know, the ones that are writing stories that are not mainstream. They're not. I love Hallmark movies, so I'm not dishing it, but it's not that same, you know, girl has an issue, meets a guy from her past, somebody has a dog, you know, there's some sort of conflict and they fall in love. I mean, there's always some sort of thing, you know, but you take an original writer with an original story and you get something like, for its time, think of the movie Sixth Sense, right? And after Sixth Sense came out, everybody was blown away, right?
Yeah.
Take something like that and translate that, because indie authors do that with so many books that they release. They are that Sixth Sense sort of, if you read it, you will be blown away by the story. I mean, Min Eurozan, it started out at 19,000 words. It became 300,000 words. And it became 6 books. But it's so much more than just this woman who finds herself, you know, awake and alert on a completely different planet. It's sights and sounds and confrontation and war and love and hope and loss and family and so much amazing love. And the ending is just completely perfect. And it's one of those things that, I mean, I love the Hunger Games. right? And I'll go back and watch that occasionally, even knowing the ending. And that's exactly how these books are. The Elecurian Chronicles, they're exactly the same. I think I've read this book probably about 30, 40 times in the last 3 years that I've written it. So about 10 times a year, I'll get it down and I'll actually read it.
All the way through.
All the way through. Because it's that good.
Also, side note, it's non-linear.
Yes.
It is non-linear storytelling. You don't get like in the beginning to this is all what happened at the end. It's like, well, here's part of the end.
Yeah.
Here's a little bit of the middle. Here's where it started, sort of began. But then we're going to go back to almost the end again.
Yes. So it's very non-linear storytelling.
And then Jack kind of touched on what we said. He said that's because so many people use the same tropes over and over again. So if you pay attention, you'll figure it out. And exactly. I mean, you know, the movies are a dime a dozen anymore. You have your group A, which is the bang, bang, shoot 'em up, lots of explosions, which love explosions. So, I mean, if it's got good explosions, I'll watch it just for that fact. I'll rent it from Redbox or something. And then you get to, the standard, like you said, Jack and Sally fall in love and there's some kind of conflict and, then they end up getting married. And, every single genre has, these cookie cutter films, movies, books, whatever. And, it's like I said, that's why I'm such a huge promoter in the indie scene between, artists, writers, authors, comic book, creators, is because this is where the good stuff is. The big two, Marvel, DC, they push out, the same stories over and over and over and over again. Hey, how can we write Spider-Man for the 9,433rd time and make it interesting to people? Here, figure it out. And then you get this book like Jack and Jake and I were talking about on Saturday on the review show, is, you get these Marvel or these DC books. They used to be 24-page books or more. There were so many words on each page. And now you go through and you look at a modern day comic book and it's like, okay, this page has 8 words on it. This page has 15 words on it. Add. And so you go through and you look at it and it's really out of a 24-page book. There's 8 pages of story and, 16 ads or other stuff, articles. And it's sad, and that's why, the shutdown last year really helped indie creators out because it helped them to see, hey, the big two shut down. Hey, a lot of the publishers and stuff are shut down. And all the indies are on Kickstarter or on some of these crowdfunder campaigns going, look at me, I'm over here. I'm still doing stuff. You can buy stuff from me. You're stuck at home.
I'm still putting out material. I'm still writing. I'm still coloring. I'm still inking. I'm still drawing. I'm still creating.
That's right. And so and then people, and that was what was awesome is people bought those books because they had nothing else to, bide their time with. And they got these books and they're like, holy crap, we've been getting ripped off this whole time. We're buying these, $5, $6, $7 books from Marvel every, week or every other week in this series. And we're getting this much story. And here I bought this indie book for $15 and I'm getting this much story, and this stuff isn't recycled. This is all new. I mean, it may be close to somebody else's story somewhere down the road, but it's something new, something fresh.
Yeah. See, Todd Black he's about our older son's age, and he's done some comics that are original, and he's brilliant. And he's pretty cool to hang out with too. And every time he puts up a Kickstarter, I'm always like, all right, let's get you funded. Right. And he always gets funded. And I've got copies of his comics as well. And that's what's neat is he's putting out quality work. It looks great. Right. And even, Brian, with this whole COVID thing started, he's like, Brian K. Morris, he's like, keep writing, keep creating. Because when this is over, you need to have new product to sell because there's going to be people who's going to be ready for it.
Yep.
So keep doing it. Keep doing your thing, everything else. Right. And when this is over, you're going to be ready for that big jump. And he was right. I'm like, well, yeah, think about it. right? Because now that everything's starting to loosen up a little bit, a few of the conventions are coming back. I've got 4 conventions booked this year, and I'm not busy. I mean, I'm not busy. Because Brian, if you look at his list of conventions, he's got loads, right? But
Yeah.
Matt and I've already discussed it, and we're like, I don't want to do a bunch this year because I would rather, honestly, as much as I would love to do the conventions, I want to release 4 books. So 4 conventions, 4 books. I think that's pretty good.
So what conventions are you going to do this year?
I am doing, it's on my calendar behind me. Which ones do I got?
Indie Book Expo.
Indie Book Expo, and that's in Peoria. That is May 29th.
Okay.
Imaginarium, which is, what's the dates on Imaginarium?
July 9th, 10th, 11th.
Yep, July 9th, 10th, and 11th in Louisville, Kentucky.
Heroes for Kids.
Heroes for Kids, and that's in Perryville, Missouri.
I know where that is. I live an hour and a half from Perryville. So you're going to be down here with me.
Yep. Heroes for Kids is great. Lonnie and Jessica are amazing people.
So I'm thinking about booking. So my book ends next Thursday, so I should have the funds April 1st from Kickstarter. So timeline right, I should have everything lined out and all the packages out in June once I get the stretch goals and all that stuff. So I'm hoping I will have books in hand and I will be set up with a booth at Heroes for Kids Con. So I mean, I haven't talked to Jessica about it yet. She still has booths open, but I'm hoping for it.
We are too. It'd be awesome to meet you in person. And who's in
September? We had SI Comic Con.
Okay, so we're in Mount Vernon, Illinois, and SI Comic Con is in Benton, Illinois, which is like 30 minutes away. Yeah, so we're trying to get
delivered to Mount Vernon. So,
and I think the last one is at Cape Comic Con.
October 1st, 2nd, 3rd.
Where's Cape?
October.
Cape Girardeau, Missouri.
So it's in Cape Girardeau? Okay.
Yeah.
So is it actually on the Cape side or is it on the Illinois side?
It's on the Cape side.
Cape side.
Okay. Yeah, because I think Heroes for Kids, isn't it going to be in Chester? I don't know. I think I seen something about Chester at one point. That was a possibility. I think because Perryville was being goofy about stuff. I don't know. There's been so much back and forth about everything, which is partially why
it's at Perry Park Center.
So it is at Perry Park Center. Okay. I know. I seen something about Chester, Illinois there for a little while, and I was like, well, I mean, it's still not bad. Chester, Illinois is just over the river from Perryville, so.
Yeah, and Cape Comic Con is at Percy Drive. Oh, I looked at this the other day.
Drury. It's right there.
Go ahead.
Drury Conference Center in Cape Girardeau.
Okay, I know where that is.
Yep, that's where that one's at.
And so Jack said some fun romance anime to watch if you guys are interested are Science Fell in Love, so I try to prove it. Your Lie in April. Clannad After Story. The Ancient Magus Bride.
Ancient Magus' Bride. That's Connor's. He likes that one.
Yeah.
And then the quintessential quintuplets. There's a bunch of ones. Those are really good.
I think the kids have actually watched all those.
I think they've actually talked about all of those. Yeah. Our kids are big anime geeks. So they talk about all kinds of stuff like that.
But the only thing that's holding us back with Perryville is Roderick with his heart condition. So I don't know. We'll see how things go. I'm really hoping to make it because I'm super excited. I'm super excited to meet everybody because Brian's going to be there. You guys are going to be there. I think Michaela Jade is supposed to be there, possibly. I don't know. Everybody's been so back and forth. Amy Hale was supposed to be there, but now Amy Hale had to cancel because one of the other cons overran when Heroes was, and that was one of the bigger ones that she goes to. So she's like, I'm not going to be able to make it, but I'm really hoping for it. So we'll see what happens. I'm excited. I'm going to have a book in my hand. Be like, hey, check this out.
That is awesome. It is nothing. There is no other feeling like having that first book you've ever written and published in your hand.
And you know what? It's so much of a feeling that I've honestly debated the idea of driving to pick them up from the printer instead of having them shipped to me. Because how awesome would that be, just to go on a road trip to another state and just like pull up an ability and be like, these are where my books are being made, you know, and just do it live and just be like, open up the books, you know, the box of books and get that fresh book smell for the first time and weep
your book smell.
and weep.
I mean,
Yeah, and just weep uncontrollably at the smell of the book, not because it's the smell of a fresh book, but because it's your book.
right?
I can't wait. I'm
It's gonna
excited.
It's going to be awesome.
So I'm going to give you guys the big screen. I want you to tell everybody where they can find you. Tell them a little bit about Min Eurozan. I'm probably butchering that. I'm sorry.
Everybody does. I actually expected it when I wrote it.
There's a glossary in it.
There is a glossary with the pronunciation in the front of the book.
Well, see, we have hit that time of night where I start to slur my words, so it makes it really hard for me to talk. Just because
then you're speaking Illyrian correctly.
And you're doing fine.
Yeah. So I will give you guys the big screen. Like I said, tell everyone where they can find you. I'm gonna pop that link for Amazon back in there and give them your somewhat elevator speech since you don't remember yours. It's just totally fine. I'm terrible with elevator speeches, so elevator pitches. So don't feel bad. I am too. Oh, wrong person. That's it. I'm fired. Well, my computer's froze up again.
Go.
So I'm Cathy Jackson. You can find me at Amazon. You can find me at Barnes & Noble. Pretty much wherever you buy your favorite book, whether it's paperback or ebook. Social network. I'm on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at author C. Jackson. I have a fan page. It's not really a fan page. It's a group page where we all get together. We're different creators from different outlets of authors, actors, graphic designers, editors. I mean, just come join us there. And that's at Cathy Jackson's Books on Facebook. Come and like my author page. That's author C. Jackson on Facebook. Follow me there. Anything else? If you like uplifting, encouraging, anywhere from sweet romance to super sexy, spicy romance, you can find that there. I've got 4 books coming out this year written on her heart. My Sapphira, Min Eurozan has already came out. It's the first book in the Illyrian Chronicles, and 5 Moments, which is the 4th book in the 5 series. So huge thank you to Russell Allen for having me tonight on his show. He is pretty awesome. And when his book comes out, you guys all need to go buy his book because it sounds amazing.
Thank you. Sorry, my mic was muted. Thank you. We actually have a few people in the audience tonight that have read the book. Wendy was one of them. I was super mean to her too, and I gave her the same pitch which ended at chapter 3. So I got yelled at constantly for being on live shows, being like, "Hey guys, what's up?" And she's like, "Why are you not writing right now? I need to know what happens next."
I like you, Wendy. Keep on it.
And then Jack, of course, in the audience has read the book as well.
Awesome.
If you guys don't know, about a tea turtle, their t-shirt website has a bunch of fun shirts, and I'm looking at one that has a fox with a book open, and in the book it says, "I'm hiding from the world." It's great. But yeah, thanks so much for being on tonight. I really appreciate you guys being on. Thanks for talking about your books and your inspirations and, you know, why you started writing books. You know, it was really interesting hearing your story, and I'm definitely going to check out some of these books.
And yours too, Russell. It sounds like you're inspired, and it sounds like, I mean, definitely the books that you're going to write, it's going to change people's lives, and it's gonna rock the world. So you just keep doing it, man. That's awesome.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
So if you guys want to hang out in the back room for a minute, I'll be back. If you got to go, I totally understand. So I will be back in a second.
Thanks.
Guys, thanks so much for being here tonight. Thanks for listening to Cathy Jackson talk about her inspirations, who her favorite authors were, and listening to a little bit about her books. Definitely go check them out. Pop that Amazon link in for all you fine folks on YouTube and on my YouTube and on the Facebook pages. Also in the description in the above the video, you have the link to Cathy Jackson's book page on Facebook, and you also have the link for Amazon in there if you cannot find it in the comments. For everyone who watched tonight, thanks so much for being here. For everyone going back and watching this, thanks so much for going back and watching it. I appreciate all of you. And guys, one last shout out. Nebula Pearl ends sometime tomorrow morning or in the afternoon. This is your last chance to get in on it. And it also has a cross promo with Xenonanite Titan. So there you go right there. If you back Xenonanite Titan and Nebula Pearl, you'll get that super sweet die cut sticker. If you back Fire Bitch 2, if you back Naughty Fairies or Into the Suck and Nebula Pearl, you get all four of these awesome connecting. So definitely, if you back any of those projects, please check out Nebula Pearl, the Mind Meld project featuring the writings of Wendy Steenshiner, Alfred Trujillo, Doobie Doobie Doo, Kara Nicole, Michael Schumacher, and CB Zane. Brought to you by Codex Entertainment LLC, Mr. Luis Torres himself. So once again, thanks so much for being here. Thanks so much for checking it out. Check out Xenonanite Titan on Facebook. As always, Rust Explode Studios, projects that'll blow your mind. You guys have a great night.